Again, the Queen of Consorts surprises us, but not in a good way.
Made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
Britain had seen royal weddings, public betrayals, painful family exits, and the death of a beloved sovereign. But nothing prepared the country for the words King Charles was reportedly about to deliver. With Camilla only rooms away and senior members of the family watching in stunned silence, the monarch announced a decision that would cut through the palace like a blade. Camilla would no longer continue in the same public role as queen. Her position beside the crown had been fundamentally rewritten. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you do not miss a single update. Charles knew everyone in that room understood the danger. William sat beside Catherine, while Princess Anne and Prince Edward faced sealed folders carrying Camilla's name. Advisors had surrendered their phones outside. Guards stood beyond locked doors. The gathering had been called a constitutional briefing, the kind of meeting used to settle matters affecting royal authority. But the folders revealed something far more painful. This was not only a briefing. This was a family reckoning. The king lifted the declaration, and his fingers trembled. He announced that his wife would cease carrying out the duties and privileges attached to being queen. She would no longer appear as the monarchy's leading female figure. She would live in a reduced private role for the rest of his reign. William watched his father struggle through every sentence. The future king had seen Charles endure private grief, pressure, scandal, and public judgment. But this was different. This decision wounded him from the inside. Catherine glanced toward her husband, already understanding that the announcement would reshape her responsibilities as much as it would reshape Camilla's life. And remained still, but she noticed something others missed. There was another page under her brother's hand. He kept it hidden, suggesting the declaration concealed a reason more painful than the decision itself. Camilla did not move when a courtier delivered the news to her private rooms. She gripped the arm of her chair and asked one question. Had Charles personally approved every word? The answer came quietly. He had. The queen consort looked toward the closed door, then back at the notice, searching for any phrase that might leave room for forgiveness. There was none. The order was permanent. No review had been promised. No temporary withdrawal had been offered. No path back to her former standing remained. She rose, set the paper down, and began walking toward the monarch's private rooms. William saw the movement begin and immediately understood what would follow. His father had made the decision as king, but Camilla was coming to confront him as a wife. While the country would struggle to understand what Charles had taken from Camilla, those inside the palace knew the deeper question was not only what she had lost. It was what every member of the family now stood to gain, sacrifice, or expose. Behind the title stood 5 people bound by blood, marriage, duty, and decades of unresolved pain. Charles had made the announcement, but he could not escape the woman whose future he had just dismantled. Camilla had survived public hatred to reach the throne, only to be pushed away from it by the man who once protected her from the world. And William, standing between them, understood that one wrong word could turn a royal decision into a permanent family war. Charles remained alone after the meeting. He removed his glasses, pressed his fingers against his eyes, and stared at the declaration. The crown, meaning the authority of the sovereign rather than the person wearing it, demanded stability. Yet the king knew stability had come at a brutal price. He had defended Camilla through scandal, rejection, and years of national anger. Now he had become the one person with the power to take everything away. She had once been the outsider waiting beyond palace doors. Becoming queen had represented survival, acceptance, and victory after years of humiliation. Losing that place did not feel like a change of duty. It felt like abandonment. Camilla refused offers of help inside her apartment. She sat beside the folders and told her aide she would speak only to Charles. The queen consort had trusted his protection when anger was at its fiercest, and she could not understand why that protection had failed now. Outside the room, William stopped with his hand raised near the door. He carried old wounds connected to Camilla's place in his family's history. Yet hearing her voice break left him trapped between resentment and pity. He lowered his hand without knocking. Charles was unraveling behind one door. His wife was waiting behind another. And the future king could protect neither without betraying the other. Catherine felt the danger when an advisor handed her the revised schedule. Several ceremonial responsibilities once assigned to Camilla would now pass to her. A ceremonial responsibility meant a public royal duty representing continuity, rank, and the crown. The princess understood immediately why the transfer mattered. Every new appearance would make her look like the beneficiary of another woman's fall. She told William she wanted no celebration. He agreed, knowing that even silence could be mistaken for ambition. Then Anne drew her nephew aside. She warned him that the crisis had not grown from one disagreement. During a private royal ceremony, Camilla had crossed a boundary Charles had explicitly ordered everyone to respect. The Princess Royal said a documented account would explain why her brother could no longer defend Camilla's position. To understand why the king was willing to wound the woman he had defended for most of his adult life, the family would have to return to the ceremony where one quiet act turned tension into betrayal. The collapse did not begin with shouting. It began with a chair, a sealed order, and a ceremony that was never meant to attract attention. Only a handful of royals were present when Camilla made the choice that changed everything. Charles had issued a direct instruction about the future of the monarchy. She understood it. William understood it. Yet when the decisive moment arrived, she ignored the king's wishes and forced him to confront a fear he had tried to bury for years. Tension had been building long before Windsor. Camilla had pushed for loyal figures to retain royal patronages, household appointments, and places near the center of ceremony. A royal patronage is an official link between a royal family member and a charity or public body. Ceremonial precedence decides who stands, enters, or sits before whom. Charles feared rival households were beginning to blur authority just as William and Catherine were moving closer to the throne. The king needed one clear line of command. His wife feared that clarity would make her disappear. Camilla made that fear visible during a closed investiture planning ceremony at Windsor Castle. An investiture is a formal event where the monarch or another senior royal presents honors. Charles had left a sealed written instruction reserving the central chair for Catherine. But Camilla took it before the meeting began and refused an aide's request to move. Catherine stopped in the doorway. She said nothing. Camilla kept both hands on the chair's arms, forcing everyone in the room to understand the challenge without a raised voice. William entered later, saw his wife standing aside, and felt anger rise through him. The prince believed the act was designed to diminish Catherine's future role. But Catherine's silence warned him not to turn an insult into open war. Charles confronted Camilla privately after the ceremony. He asked why she had ignored him. According to a recorded palace account, she answered that she would not become invisible because the next generation was impatient. The king heard more than defiance. He heard a warning. His marriage and the succession were now pulling in opposite directions. And deepened that fear when she handed her brother a documented folder showing earlier instructions altered, delayed, or reinterpreted by members of Camilla's household. The Princess Royal pointed to the replaced seating cards. Someone had prepared the challenge before anyone entered the room. Charles summoned Camilla to his study without advisors. He placed the altered seating plan between them and waited for the door to close. The chair at Windsor had exposed the struggle. But inside the king's locked study, far from courtiers and cameras, marriage, power, and the future of the crown finally collided. Charles did not raise his voice when Camilla entered. That made the moment even more frightening. The altered seating plan lay on the desk between them, its crossed-out names carrying the weight of an accusation neither of them could soften. She expected anger. What she saw was grief. Then the king asked the question that stripped away every title, every defense, and every carefully protected memory. Had she ever truly intended to respect the future he was trying to build? Charles wanted one answer. Had the Windsor change been a misunderstanding, an act of defiance, or part of a wider effort to preserve Camilla's influence? The king had defended her through scandal, hostility, and years of danger. She entered believing that history still protected her. He entered knowing love could no longer settle what duty had placed before them. Charles slid the seating plan across the desk and asked whether she had authorized Catherine's name to be removed. The document recorded who would occupy each ceremonial position, so every name carried meaning. Camilla admitted she had known the central chair was intended for Catherine. The queen consort argued that surrendering every sign of seniority would leave her queen in name only. She had fought too long to reach that place. She felt the future slipping away from her before her reign had truly settled. Charles answered with words she had never expected. The throne, he said, had never been created to prove their love. The king still loved her. But as sovereign, the person carrying constitutional responsibility, he could not allow affection to override succession. Camilla flinched. She removed a royal brooch and placed it beside the document. A royal brooch is more than jewelry at state events. It signals status, belonging, and authority. She told him he could not ask her to wear symbols of power while denying her the power to use. Charles opened Anne's file. It contained documented records of unauthorized contact between Camilla's office and ceremonial planners, proving the Windsor change had been coordinated. She accused William's household of building a case against her. The king stopped her. His son had not made the final recommendation. He had. That admission broke the final defense. Camilla rose without asking for mercy. She left the brooch on the desk, closed the door, and did not look back. Charles waited until her footsteps disappeared. Then he pressed the private bell. When the constitutional secretary entered, the monarch ordered an irreversible declaration reducing her role. A constitutional secretary is the senior advisor who turns a sovereign decision into royal instruction. The marriage had survived disgrace, opposition, and decades of judgment. But once Charles turned their private rupture into a formal order, the battle moved from emotion to authority. A king may sign a declaration alone, but no royal transformation survives on one signature. Behind Charles's announcement stood a quiet alliance of people who had reached the same conclusion for very different reasons. William wanted stability and wanted discipline. Catherine wanted protection from a conflict she had never asked to inherit. Yet when they gathered around the long table, each understood that reducing Camilla's role would change not only her future, but theirs. Charles took his place without ceremony. The constitutional secretary explained that Camilla's legal marriage could not be erased, but her public functions, household authority, ceremonial presentation, and access to royal privileges could be restructured. William and Edward and Catherine had been summoned because they would absorb the duties, public pressure, and private resentment created by the change. The king knew the decision would not remain trapped inside one household. It would redraw the balance of the family. Catherine opened the proposed schedule and went still. Her name appeared beside ceremonies Camilla had expected to lead. The princess understood the danger immediately. Every reassigned duty could be presented as proof that she had benefited from another woman's humiliation. William leaned forward and insisted that his wife must never appear to have demanded the transfer. The prince feared that public sympathy for Camilla would harden into suspicion against Catherine, damaging the future they were meant to protect. She agreed, but her discomfort deepened as each reassigned duty made the conflict more personal, and turned toward Charles and refused to soften the truth. Protecting Camilla from consequences, she said, would now weaken the crown and destroy the king's credibility. The Princess Royal reminded her brother that authority survives only when rules apply to those closest to the sovereign. He listened without protest. Edward remained beside them, knowing that several duties would fall to him as well. His silence confirmed that the alliance was no longer theoretical. Then the advisors disclosed the harshest terms. Camilla's household appointments and public engagements would require approval from the sovereign's central office, meaning the king's staff would control what she could authorize. Charles signed a second instruction preventing reversal during illness, pressure, or temporary withdrawal. He set down the pen, looked at William, and warned that a future monarch must never confuse affection with constitutional responsibility. Minutes later, Camilla's senior aide received an order to clear an office suite before sunset. The signatures were silent. Their consequences were not. And by the time Camilla's household received its first instructions, the Queen's former world had already begun disappearing around her. The first sign of Camilla's new reality was not a headline or a public statement. It was an empty schedule. Engagements vanished. Briefing folders stopped arriving. Staff members who had entered her rooms every morning were redirected elsewhere without explanation. Then came the order to clear the office from which she had exercised royal influence. For the woman who had fought decades to stand beside the king, the silence of the palace became more brutal than open rejection. Camilla entered her office and stopped. Archival boxes stood beside the desk, waiting for a life she had not agreed to pack away. An aide explained that the rooms had to be cleared before evening. The queen consort refused to touch anything. Packing the objects herself would feel like accepting Charles's judgment, and she was not ready to give him that victory. Her court calendar, the official schedule listing royal appearances, had already been emptied. Invitations requiring the queen had been reassigned or postponed, while her communications team was ordered to send every statement through the central palace office. The change mattered because her household had once spoken with its own authority. Now even her words needed permission. The aide began removing framed photographs in silence. Camilla watched until the woman reached a private picture of Charles. She crossed the room, took it into her own hands, and held it against her chest. The king had defended her when the country rejected her. Yet his order was now dismantling the world they had built together. Another folder brought a deeper wound. Several charities had received letters stating that Catherine, Anne, or Sophie might represent the crown at future events. A royal representative acts publicly on behalf of the sovereign, so each replacement proved that Camilla's absence was being designed to last. Camilla turned another page and discovered the next major state ceremony had already been changed. She would no longer enter beside Charles. A state ceremony is a formal national occasion where position and order display royal rank. The loss was no longer private. It would be made visible before the nation. The humiliation was complete. Yet her anger had begun to harden. Charles passed the half-cleared office without entering. Camilla saw his shadow beneath the door and realized he had paused. For 1 second, she expected the handle to move. It did not. That night, he sent no advisor and no formal message. Only a handwritten note asking her to meet him in the small garden room at dawn. By sunset, royal authority had stripped away the structures surrounding Camilla. But at dawn, Charles would face her without documents, advisors, or the protection of the crown between them. At dawn, there were no uniforms outside the garden room, no secretaries arranging papers, and no family members waiting to intervene. Charles arrived first. Camilla entered minutes later, carrying the photograph she had removed from her office. For the first time since the announcement, they were not king and queen, sovereign and consort, or rival centers of influence. They were simply two people asking whether a love that had survived the world could survive the crown itself. Charles had requested the meeting because the formal order had settled Camilla's position but shattered their marriage. The king understood that royal authority could define duties, residences, and public rank. But it could not answer whether she still belonged beside him in private. Camilla had not come to demand restoration. She needed to know whether his decision had removed only her role or destroyed his trust as well. The queen consort placed their photograph on the table and asked whether he had acted because she embarrassed the monarchy or because he no longer believed in her. Charles did not hide behind procedure. He told Camilla that he still loved her, but love could not excuse actions that placed their bond above the succession and the unity of the family. The succession is the fixed order deciding who inherits the throne, and any challenge to it risks turning private rivalry into national instability. He explained that Catherine's rising position was not a personal attack. It was part of the future the monarchy had to prepare for. Camilla listened, then confessed that fear had driven her defiance. She had endured hatred, mockery, and rejection to earn acceptance. She believed Catherine's rise would erase every painful step that had brought her there. Then Camilla made a choice Charles had not expected. She said she would withdraw from ceremonial competition and stop contesting Catherine's future position. The queen consort asked for no reversal and no hidden promise of return. The king answered with equal clarity. She would remain his wife, keep a protected private residence, and retain personal dignity. But her public role as queen would never be restored. A protected private residence means a home secured and maintained for personal use without carrying governing authority. Camilla removed the brooch from her coat, closed Charles's hand around it, and said the crown should decide where it belonged. Neither smiled. But neither walked away. They preserved what power had almost destroyed. Hours later, the palace prepared to release the full announcement. Their marriage had found a fragile boundary, but beyond the garden room, millions of people were about to judge whether Charles had protected the monarchy or broken the woman beside him to save it. By breakfast, the announcement was no longer confined to palace walls. It dominated television screens, train stations, radio bulletins, and newspaper stands across Britain. Some called it an act of royal discipline. Others saw a husband sacrificing his wife to protect an institution. Yet one image captured the national mood more powerfully than any debate. Hundreds of people standing outside Buckingham Palace in complete silence as the flag moved above a household transformed overnight. Charles watched the first bulletin alone. Broadcasters interrupted scheduled programming to explain that Camilla remained his wife, but would no longer function publicly or ceremonially as queen. A ceremonial role is a public duty through which a royal represents rank, continuity, and the crown at national occasions. Commentators split almost immediately. Some argued that the decision proved the monarchy could hold its own members accountable. Others said the king had exposed a family conflict too painful to contain. When one presenter called Camilla the greatest personal sacrifice of his reign, he switched off the television. Britain answered with shock. A major newspaper printed an empty ceremonial chair beneath the headline, "The Queen Who Stepped Away," turning absence into the defining image of the crisis. Outside Buckingham Palace, rain fell over a silent crowd. One woman placed a small bouquet beside the gates. Another said quietly that no crown was worth losing a family. Those words traveled through live broadcasts, deepening the question Charles could not escape. Had he protected the institution, or wounded his marriage beyond repair? Camilla heard supporters defend her endurance and protesters question her ambition. The Queen Consort refused every request for a statement, honoring the promise she had made to Charles at dawn. Her silence mattered because one angry response could turn private surrender into open rebellion. Yet staying silent also meant allowing strangers to define her legacy while she could not defend it. Catherine felt the pressure when her first reassigned appearance was announced. The princess would represent the crown at a national charity service previously intended for Camilla, confirming that the transfer of responsibility had already begun. William immediately instructed his team not to celebrate, brief against anyone, or treat the change as victory. The prince insisted that the monarchy must project steadiness, not triumph, because Catherine's rise could not appear built upon another woman's humiliation. Charles prepared for the family's first public appearance under the new order, knowing every step would be judged by a watching nation. Public judgment had reached every palace window. But only the family's first appearance under the new order could reveal what Charles's announcement truly meant, and whether the monarchy had survived the wound it inflicted upon itself. The final verdict did not arrive through another declaration. It arrived when the royal family stepped forward under the new order and everyone could see who stood where. Charles appeared as sovereign. William and Catherine stood prepared for the future, and remained the guardian of duty. And Camilla, absent from the ceremonial center, became living proof that even the deepest royal love could not outrank the survival of the crown. Charles paused before leaving his private rooms. The empty place beside him carried the weight of everything the announcement had changed. He steadied himself against a table, refused to delay the service, and walked forward alone in the sovereign's position. The silence around him felt merciless. A state service is a formal national ceremony where royal order shows authority and continuity. Catherine followed farther down the procession as the principal female royal, accepting a role she had never sought through another woman's fall. William remained beside her, understanding that their greater responsibility had arrived through pain rather than triumph. Camilla watched privately without ceremonial insignia. Ceremonial insignia are the jewels, badges, and symbols that publicly display royal rank. She remained composed when Catherine took the place she had once occupied. Though the Queen Consort felt the finality of that moment, her life with Charles would continue as a marriage, not a shared reign. She grieved, but she no longer fought the succession or treated the future king and his wife as rivals, and stood near Charles after the service. The Princess Royal said nothing. Yet her presence reminded her brother that he had chosen duty at a price public approval could never repay. The king had restored clarity to the monarchy, but he had also altered the trust inside his marriage forever. Titles, the family now understood, remain conditional whenever personal ambition threatens continuity. Charles returned to the private apartments where Camilla waited. No officials entered. No restoration was discussed. The monarch sat beside her, and she took his hand. Camilla had not ceased to matter. Her history had not been erased. She had simply lost the royal future she fought to secure because Charles chose the crown's survival over protecting her position. Their love endured, but her reign was over. And so the announcement that stunned Britain reached its final meaning. It was not the destruction of a marriage. It was the end of a shared royal destiny, leaving Charles with his crown, Camilla with her dignity, and the monarchy permanently changed by the choice that separated love from power. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.